Point in time, we have another special guest who's joining us right here on the NewsX to talk about a number of things, including the visit by Prime Minister Modi uh, to Ladakh. Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, former diplomat, joins us on the program. Very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
So, your initial reaction as to what has been going on for the last few days, rather, last few months, rather. Obviously, the tipping point today was the Prime Minister going to Ladakh and bolstering the morale of our forces. But there is a lot of being done in the background as well. There are back channel talks that are happening. Diplomacy is perhaps at full throttle. What is your assessment of the situation as it stands today, sir?
Firstly, China has confronted us with an unprecedented challenge. This is not the usual patrol clashes and occupation of a post or dismantling of some structure here and there. This is a very well planned, consciously done operation with massing of troops, occupying tactically important areas, and confronting India with a very difficult challenge because forcing them out of the areas which they have come in would mean escalation and could potentially lead to an all-out border conflict between India and China. But China is willing to take the risk unless they have totally miscalculated India's thinking and position and capacity to resist and feel that India can be browbeaten and bullied into accepting a compromise to China's advantage. But India has now shown that it is in no mood to compromise. And the mirror deployment that we have done should send a signal to the decision makers in Beijing that this time India will not back down and is ready for a limited border conflict with China, should China impose that on India. Now, the problem is that in the Galwan Valley, there might be a possibility of some withdrawal of troops and some kind of a compromise in which we don't lose any territory. And China remains on its side of the line of actual control, even if it continues to keep its forces in large numbers till the winter comes. But in Pangong Tso, this is not likely to happen because their intentions are clear that they are going to prevent us from patrolling beyond Finger 4. Now, that means that if India is not able to restore the status quo ante, the tensions will continue and the likelihood of a stalemate then leading to more Indian actions on various fronts to compensate for our unwillingness to actually escalate matters militarily, but find other political, economic, and diplomatic ways to counter China. Now, I think it's become a matter of prestige for China. See, having taken this step, and the world knows this, and China so far has got away with this. Now, were they to retreat and restore status quo ante, Xi himself would be horribly embarrassed. So people will begin to ask, why did he initiate this? If the whole idea was to go back to the previous positions, what has he gained out of it? In the meantime, he has lost a lot because India has already taken some important steps in the digital space and on the economic side in terms of infrastructure, which sends a long-term signal to China that it's not going to be business as usual. Now it's become a matter of prestige. And China is not going to easily accept loss of prestige because this loss of face business seems to be some kind of a peculiar psychological thing with the Chinese. And we can't afford to step back, obviously, because China is the aggressor. And Prime Minister would be in a very difficult position if he accepted the status quo today, not the status quo ante. So our preference obviously is, and it's the right thing, government has to act responsibly, that we'll explore all the options in terms of negotiations at the military level and diplomatic level, and then see if some solution with which both countries can live can be found. Otherwise, I think the stalemate will certainly continue till the end of autumn, the beginning of winter. But my reading of this is that even if it continues, two things. One, China is the loser. It would have been demonstrated that, like in the South China Sea, it just can't get away with whatever they want. And even if they made some marginal gains in preventing patrolling from finger 4 to finger 8, in the larger scope of things, in the larger strategic scope of things, this is nothing. This is nothing. So this will actually be a huge setback to China. And in the meantime, they are being excluded from the Indian market. The Indian public mood has become very anti-Chinese. So all the gains that have been made in recent years in trying to normalize the relation to some extent in terms of having some positive engagement, that has received a huge setback. And the loss will be far more China's than ours because China has global ambitions. We don't have those kind of ambitions. And especially in the advanced technology space, digital space, where they want actually now to not only compete, but outcompete the United States and dominate this space. But if the Indian market is not available to them, it'll be a huge blow to their ambitions. And it's a good thing that we have done this.
Ambassador Sibal, the situation or the standoff or the friction that both the countries find themselves in today, do you think this was eventual, this was imminent, because both the countries, looking for, global recognition? I mean, global recognition is something that I can speak for India, but when it comes to China, perhaps they're looking for global hegemony. Both the countries looking for, access to, the world economy, and geopolitically also, India and China have been going at each other for a long time. So it was only a matter of time before such a standoff came about.
No, not really. No. I don't accept that argument. I think India, I might say, has gone out of its way to maintain some stability in relations with China, despite China's provocations. Now, what was the need for China to stage the Depsan thing when their prime minister was to visit India? What was their sense in staging this Jumar thing when President Xi was in Indian soil? But look beyond that. The kind of challenges, strategic challenges that they have posed to us. Firstly, this China-Pakistan economic corridor, and of course their general support for Pakistan. Their China and the Gwadar port, that is one. The other, opposing us our membership of the NSG, and far worse, more than once trying to inscribe the Kashmir issue on the UN agenda, even though since 1957, Kashmir has never figured on the UN.
Right, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, sir. Then we wrap up, sir. We've run out of time.
Therefore,
sir.
I think the provocations have all come from China's side. It's not a question of India searching space for itself. It's China thinks in hierarchical terms, and it sees India as an obstacle. And therefore, Xi is now highly centralized, highly authoritarian, highly aggressive mindset. And he's taken this risk, and I think this time he has created a serious problem for himself. And I think this will redound to China's great embarrassment, I must say.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sibal, for joining us and giving us those valuable insights.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.